Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm Janet Sweetall from Cprime, and I have the distinct privilege of introducing Meenakshi Iyer. And Meenakshi is the founder and principal of North Star Solutions and Services, where she provides virtual and one-on-one and group coaching and mentoring services to individuals and teams. She also helps bespoke leadership development, change leadership advisory services, and helps out small and medium businesses. Meenakshi is all about paying it forward, which I love, and she's very intentional about supporting the women in technology and women in Agile communities, particularly those who speak English as an additional language. She is fluent in 4 languages and has lived and worked in 10 cities in India and the United States. Please give Meenakshi a really warm welcome for me.
Thank you so much. Okay. Thank you so much for that kind introduction, Janet. Oh, okay. This is my first time in I don't know how long that I'm seeing people in 3D, and there are no Zoom boxes, nobody to mute. So that's my way of saying I'm extremely nervous being here, outside of the comfort of my computer screen and my setup in my home office. So thank you all for being here today and for choosing to invest your time in this conversation here today. Many thanks to Anne, MC, Kyle, and the entire Cprime team for creating an opportunity for this, what I call a crucial conversation about making change our competitive advantage. And I'm really grateful to be a part of it. And once again, thank you all for being here today. Okay. I would like to start off. Am I still audible? Yeah. I'd like to start off by taking a moment to acknowledge all of the women, including my own mother and my grandmothers, who've paved the way for me to be here today. And this is my way of doing that. And a little more context on my experience. What's a conversation without some tech challenges? So we've got that out of the way now. So usually it's not being audible on Zoom or the camera not working. This is the mic not working. So to add to Janet's introduction of me, just wanted to give you a little bit of context. So all those pins that you see on the map, these are all places that I've lived and worked. So I'm originally from the south of India. That's the purple pin, if it shows as purple there. And so I did the whole north-south in India about 3 times. I was born in where the purple pin is, and I spent my formative years where the blue pin is, up in the north. Went back to the purple pin, then to the green pin, back to the blue pin, then to the red pin, and then back here to the purple pin here in the US. And I've only lived in Virginia for the last 14 years, where I arrived as an accompanying spouse and had to restart my career all over again. So that's the perspective that I bring to you in product innovation, change, and leadership, because I really have a career that in modern day parlance is referred to as a portfolio career, yeah, or a jungle gym. So I have lots of experience in healthcare, international healthcare, health IT, IT services, and I've spent a lot of time managing enterprise system implementations for health insurance companies here in the US. And in India, I worked in HR training, all on the IT services side. So I've seen the whole world of software outsourcing from both sides, from India, and then after I moved to the States, a view from this side of the fence, if you will. And another experience that I have is that of being an English language, English as a second language teacher for adult learners back in India. So I did a lot of corporate training, and I was really shocked to find out that the biggest market that we had, we offered several languages, the company I worked for, the biggest market we had was for English. Despite us having a colonial past and English being one of the languages we speak in the country. So all of this has informed what I do today, where I serve as a personal agility and self-leadership coach for technology leaders, specifically mid-career technology leaders, especially those who speak English as an additional language, just like myself, because our lived experience in the workplace is very different, because a lot of us come from cultures that are not English speaking, and we have to constantly code switch. And so that's a very different experience, and that's one of the things that I work with my individual coaching clients. So my interdisciplinary career has really made me a very strong systems thinker, and which is why being a connector of people and of ideas sort of comes naturally to me. And today, I'm here, my intention is to sort of connect a few dots with you as I engage, share, and plant a few seeds for some ideas, and hopefully generate some bias for action towards bringing those to life. I'm here to do three things. Share my worldview, if you will, of product innovation from a tech for good perspective. Two, make the case for leading with our head, heart, and hands, which I call full body leadership. And that's a term I just made up, inspired by, and you can look it up, it's called whole body yes, and there's a concept, and a conscious leadership group talks about that. So when I started thinking about leading with your head, heart, and hands, I was like, oh wow, that's pretty much full body leadership. The third thing, I would really like to help you get started on being change ready by setting you up with your own personal leadership agility map. And that's a little activity that we'll do towards the end of this conversation today. I value your presence and engagement. And so this will be an interactive conversation, but in an inclusive way. So there are going to be, there's big questions, but you don't have to answer to me or to the group. It's more of sort of self-reflective work, but it is going to be engaging. And you're welcome to share either with folks sitting next to you, or if you want to shout out your responses, it's totally fine, yeah? All right, so let's dig in. So this is the first activity. So there's two ways you can engage in this, yeah? You can pull out your mobile phones. You will need your mobile phone for this. You can either, and you will need to be internet enabled. So you can either go to menti.com, plug in the code, or scan the QR code. Picture a leader and think about the words that come to your mind, and you can put your responses. You can do up to 5 responses, 5 different words. We're just building a word cloud, and we're going to come back to this. We're putting a pin in this, so we're going to come back to this towards the end of the conversation. Okay, can someone confirm that the code worked? Yep. The screen's working? Okay, thank you. Okay, so, okay, let's take a minute if you want to respond, and then we'll come back and look at it. This is where I miss Zoom because I could have played music. Oh. Then we'll have to open both the doors, the exits. All right. This will be open throughout. The poll is open for you, yeah? So next, now I invite you to sort of step back from everything and consider the world that we live in and the state of the human experience. And think about what comes to mind. The world I see, we live in a world in which human experience is absolutely dominated by technology. And we're barely scratching the surface in understanding the real impact and implications of living in a technology-driven life. We are just about seeing that. We live in a world in which human-made algorithms rule and run our lives, make decisions for us, from the trivial, like what show you might binge watch next on Netflix, to a minor, who you might connect with next on LinkedIn, to something very consequential, like who might the next president be. It's election season, next Tuesday, go out and vote. Beat those algorithms, yeah? And we live in a world where technology, it's a double-edged sword. It has the power to bring people together and at the same time alienate them as well. We live in a world where inequities of all sorts have been normalized. What you see here is the island nation of Kiribati on the map. And I had to find a picture that showed it very clearly because that's how small these islands are. They're in the South Pacific, as you can see. And the picture on your right is what the island looks like today. And if you Google Kiribati, the first thing that you'll see, this is the first nation that's the entire island nation is it runs the risk of being wiped off the planet in a matter of few years. So the government of Kiribati is in the process of buying land, purchasing land on other countries so that they can move their entire population. This is the context against which we have some of us who can afford to plan our vacation, book our vacation trips to space, right? So that's the kind of inequities we're talking about. And technology sits at the center of all of this. We live in a world where the distribution of global wealth, so as you can see, this graph, so I have I don't know if the source is showing up. So if you Google this is from a Credit Suisse report, Global Wealth Report. So the top of the pyramid, the 62.5 million people that you see, they are merely 1.2% of the world's population. But they control close to 50%, 47.8% of the total global wealth. They're sitting on close to $222 trillion. And compare it to the base of the pyramid, which accounts for close to 50% of the world's population, and they share a combined wealth of just $5 trillion. And this is as of last year. So the point I'm trying to make with all this is that human experience is a product of our choices and our circumstances, one of which is clearly in our control and the other one not so much. And today, I'd like to invite all of you to focus on what is in our control, which is the choices that we make. Because I think the ability to choose and the ability to choose wisely will determine not only our individual futures, but also our collective future, the future of work, the future of the planet. So, in my opinion, there are 3 crucial choices that are to be made. Number 1, how might we make change central to our ways of being and doing? In organizations, we tend to have a stream of work called organizational change management, organizational transformation. Agile practitioners, we talk about agile transformations all the time. We treat change like its own separate thing. Whereas if you look at ourselves, you look at any biological form, anything in nature, change is built in. Change is growth. Yeah? How many of us worry when our young children do not outgrow their clothes. We want them to outgrow their clothes, right? How might we bring that same mentality, that same mindset? Earlier on the keynote, we heard Fernanda talk about mindsets. What you expect is what you manifest. So why is it so difficult for us to expect change to be a part of our natural course of everything that we do? So that's my invitation for you to think about. So how might we make change central to the way that we do things, the way we are? Yeah? Number 2, how might we use technology to make the human experience equitable? What is possible? What are some choices that we, especially those of us that work in technology, that build technology for others to use, what might we do to build in the equity in the systems and products and services that we build? Number 3, how might we bring humanity back into the technology and into the products and services that it creates? So these are some choices that we can make. So, and as I say this, I also want to submit to you that the most important and foundational ingredient for us to be able to make these choices in a meaningful way is leadership. Now, leadership is another term that is so grossly overused. I was thinking about it when I had the title of my talk, Unpacking Leadership. And I sometimes, as much as that's the part of the work that I do, I think about, every time I use the word, I think about it. So what is leadership? Let's hear some responses here. What is leadership? Words that come to your mind, just if you want to shout it out. We just heard that, yes. That's a good one. You paid attention. Anything else? Sorry?
Engaging.
Uh-huh.
Leading by example.
Fantastic. Leading by example, engaging, conductor. Yep. So I have a slightly, well, it links all of that, but a more descriptive way of thinking about it. And to me, leadership is the intentional application of core human skills, of agility, empathy, grit, humility, and inclusion. By the way, you'll notice I do a lot of 3s and 5s. And this is from my mentor and former boss, who always would say, no less than 3 and no more than 5. You know who I'm talking about. I have 5 fingers on my hand, I can count and I can remember. So that's my 3s and 5s. So to me, leadership is the intentional application of core human skills. And if you look up any future jobs reports, any of that, and again, going back to the opening remarks and the keynote, replicating human potential and the capability that humans have, no bot can ever do that. That's my fundamental firm belief. So as much as we may automate, we may want to automate, we may want to build technology into everything, what we do best, only we can do. And those core human skills are the skills of the future, which we are really running short on. So the talent shortage that you're seeing is more the core human skills shortage. So I also have seen that we tend to put leadership on a pedestal, treat it like something special. It's like fairy dust, you either have it or you don't. And I think because of this, we make it a bit out of reach. And we think that leadership means you have to have followership. You have to have titles. You have to have positional power. And I'm here to tell you that none of that is true. Leadership is available to each of us. It's accessible to each of us. regardless of our circumstance. Remember, we talked about choice and circumstance before. Leadership is available to us regardless of our circumstance. But I think the real question is, how well do we use our agency to make that choice? How well do we use our sense of agency to make that choice? So why are we talking about leadership and the product innovation? I think, and I saw the attendee profiles, several product owners, product managers, scrum masters. Those of us in product management roles, we often have to rely on influence rather than authority to co-create those impactful products and services that we do. And it's imperative that we know how to lead ourselves before we can lead others or lead change. So it all boils down, it comes down to how well do we know ourselves and how well are we able to lead ourselves. So it's in that context that I'm bringing it back. And secondly, innovation is not an event, it's a process. Yeah? And to me, it's a multi-layered process. And there are 3 steps or 3 ingredients to it. Yeah? And I call it the 3 C's. Courage, creativity, and continuous learning. And there are reasons why I've picked these 3. We need courage to challenge the status quo. And you need creativity to be able to build for everyone. Anne Jean-Baptiste, check her out, she's with Google, she's written a book, Building for Everyone. It's a very different and very impactful take on inclusion. So when you need creativity if you want to build for everyone and you want to build thinking about the 3 Ps, planet, people, and profit. Here I want to make a special mention of Professor Peter Hawkins' work on systemic coaching. And he also has this model called eco-aware coaching. There's a lot of coaching pieces that are used, coaching initiatives that are used with government agencies and in climate work. So one of the things he talks about is, what if we had an empty chair in every boardroom that represented the planet? Would we be still making the same decisions that we have been making and we continue to make? So how might we get back to thinking about the planet and considering the planet as a stakeholder in the technology that we build? And continuous learning, because that's the only way you can fuel continuous improvement. And especially as Agile practitioners and Scrum practitioners, we love our inspect and adapt, and we love progress over perfection. And how else can you do that? Yeah. So I know I've spoken a lot, and again, this is where I miss Zoom because I could have done so many other interactive things. No emojis to show. So I want to just take a 30-second pause, and I invite you to just think about what's emerged for you in the last 20 minutes of my monologue, and write it down. Just take a pause, write down what's come up for you. If you want to share it with folks sitting next to you, you're welcome to do that as well. Or you can doodle. Okay. All right. Show of hands. How many of you recognize at least one of these logos? You can't ask Google right now. Okay, so then this, I hope, might be interesting for you. So the first one, so what I want to do, so this is like the second segment of my conversation. What I'd like to do is present to you, remember I talked about sharing my worldview of product innovation. So that's what this is, and I want to share with you 3 different products from 3 different industries, products and services really, that in my mind, fall in the tech for good space. So Rang Day is from India, and the closest organization that you can think of in the North American context is Kiva.org, if you remember that. Kiva was launched, I want to say 2005 or so. It's a micro-lending, microcredit platform. And it enables you to raise, crowdsource money for entrepreneurs around the world. It's still active. So that's the closest thing to the North American equivalent for Rang Day. The big difference is Rang Day is not a charity. It is a sound investment opportunity where people like you and I can invest money and we get a return. And charity, while it does a lot of good, it can rob the recipients of dignity. And Rang Day has found a way to support the unbanked, people who cannot have or do not have access to regular banking, who cannot open a bank account for whatever reason. They may be so poor that they can't have a bank account, or it could be digital illiteracy, because banking has switched, most of it is done via technology, it's internet banking. So there are many reasons why. So Rang Day is on a mission to revolutionize, this is from their site, credit access and enable that last mile financial inclusion. That's what they do. So they founded in 2008, and they are India's only peer-to-peer lending platform focused on providing timely and affordable credit to unbanked communities. So who are their beneficiaries? Their beneficiaries are their customers. They're not beneficiaries because they're not a charity. Their customers are artists, farmers, cottage industry entrepreneurs who otherwise do not have access to credit to keep their cash flow going for their businesses. So the inspiration came to them from the setting up of Grameen Bank and the work done by Professor Muhammad Yunus of Bangladesh, who got a Nobel Prize for the work he did. They were also very affected and moved by this spate of farmer suicides that happened in India in the time when they launched this. So this is how they got into it. And these are the people behind it, Ram and Smita. So let's see how they did on the 3 C's. Courage, well, they dared to take on banking institutions in India. The creativity, well, they created a very niche fintech product and service that catered to last mile financial inclusion. And it makes sense for all their stakeholders. Continuous learning, the founders, till this day, they do. So if you go to their website, rangday.in, first thing on the top right, what you'll see is live Q&A with their founders. So Ram and Smita get on a WebEx every so often, and you can meet them, chat with them, understand their model, figure out how, if you want to be a part of it. So that's how they keep their continuous learning going. So that's Rang Day. Techies Without Borders. Techies Without Borders, this was founded in 2018 as a US-based nonprofit. And what they do is they are all about using sustainable technology, computer-based technology solutions. They use that as a building block to create sustainable change in communities that they serve. So they are multidisciplinary. They do a lot of work in education and healthcare, and they bring together professionals, and then they do that. So this is their mission. The flow of IT is interrupted, and they want to fix that. So the projects that they do, so one of the, and this is only part of the team. Dr. Manoj Thomas, he was one of my professors here at Virginia Commonwealth University. And so one of the projects that he had done, so again, looking back at the 3 C's, the courage, creativity, and continuous learning, they used mobile phone-based, SMS-based technology to support women's reproductive health in a fishing community in the southwestern part of India. And the challenges that and this was like, I don't know, 10 years ago, 10, 15 years ago now. And what they learned in that process was that although everyone had a mobile phone, They were owned by the men in the household, not the women. And they also learned that talking about reproductive health, menstrual hygiene, menstrual health was such a taboo, so they had to they developed a code system. So all they had to do was text a number, and that text went to the community health worker. And based on the number, the community health worker knew what the ailment was for the woman was facing, and they would do a home visit to figure out the next steps. But the project did not take off or beyond the pilot because of financial challenges, lack of access for decision making on who will have a cell phone and who will not, and who will be allowed to use it and who will not. So when we design products and services, understanding at the ground level what are the other related challenges that folks are facing, that becomes a big part. And as a human-centered design practitioner, that really speaks to me about when you design ground up with an understanding of what the ecosystem challenges are. The third one, Project Last Mile. This has roots in North America and in Europe. If we can get a bottle of Coke practically anywhere in the world, why can't we get life-saving medicines? Two people from different parts of the world wondered out loud about this. So if you Google this, you will find two TED Talks, one from 2010 and one from 2014. The 2010 was by Simon and Jane Berry. Simon Berry, the founder of Cola Life. And 2014, Melinda Gates, who needs no introduction. So that's how one of the world's most successful public-private partnerships was born. So Coca-Cola Foundation is invested in this, and they are all about leveraging Coca-Cola's existing business acumen, their supply chain, and their logistics systems, including warehouse and storage. Why? Because vaccines need cold chain, which is another issue, because where do vaccines get developed? Mostly in resource-rich countries, where we do not have to think about what will happen if there's a power cut, what if I cannot afford a refrigerator, what if I don't have a refrigerator. So this goes back to who designs for who, and who's not at the table, who's included. So Project Last Mile was founded in 2010, and how they did about the 3 C's, asked the question, if Coke can be there, why can't be medicines? And they got really creative and launched this public-private partnership. Continuous learning, every country is different, so they currently serve 8 countries in Africa. Every country is different. Every nation has its own needs. The people are different. Their constraints are different. So how they have learned from one geography to another and how they have continued to do their work. And they started off with infectious diseases like diarrhea and all of that, and then they played a big role in rolling out the COVID vaccines. So these are the partners. As you can see, this is funded by both government agencies and by the Coca-Cola Foundation. Yeah? So I'm going to pause again. I have 12 more minutes. I want you to think about, out of these 3 examples, which resonated with you the most. Again, you can share with each other, or you can shout it out. All right. So, if you recall, I started with 3 questions. How might we make change central to our ways of being and doing? How might we use technology to make the human experience more equitable? And how might we bring humanity back into technology and the products and services it creates? So with the last 3 examples that I shared with you, we've looked at the second and the third questions. Now to the first question around change readiness. How might we make change central to our ways of being and doing. Yeah? And this is where full body leadership comes into play. So leading with our head, our heart, and our hands. I have a few pointers here. What does leading with our head really mean? How do we learn? How do we check our own biases? How do we communicate our ideas? How do we facilitate decision making? And these are things all of us do every day, at work and in our lives. And the crux of it, leading with our head, is transforming ideas into strategy that really meets the needs of who we are trying to serve. Leading with our heart, what does that include? Being present. We heard the challenges with multitasking. So how can we begin to monotask again, which is what the human brain is really wired for, yeah? So being present with what you're doing, with who you are at the moment. Time is the most precious gift that you can give anyone because you never get it back. Lisa Bodell in her TED Talk talks about, we get mad when people waste our money. Why don't we get mad when people waste our time? Think about that. So being present. Articulating our emotions, how we feel, how are we able to talk about it? Navigating inconvenience. And I see Brandy here, shout out to you, talking about inconvenient truths in your book. So how do we navigate inconvenience? How do we choose to speak up or not speak up? How do we do the right thing? As leaders, how do we invest in others? So to me, the crux of leading with a heart is transforming energy into fuel, where you are intentional about bringing something to life and you're bringing others along. Leading with our hands, connecting the dots, finding flow in our work. And we build communities, and that's how you can sustain change. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go together, if you want to go long, go together. An ancient African proverb. And how do you creating bias for action? What is that one thing that you can do? This I call, number 4, I call the say-do gap. Your say-do gap has to be as close to 0 as possible, aligning your actions with your words. So to me, the crux of leading with your heart is transforming effort into value. So that's, to me, is a summary of leading with your head, heart, and hands. Transforming ideas to strategy, transforming energy to fuel, transforming effort into value. So, remember, we put a pin in this? So let's look at what we got. There we go. That's fantastic. Visionary, listener, inspiring, those stand out. This is fantastic. Question for you. Who were you thinking about when you thought about a leader? Yourself or someone else? How might you think about yourself? What needs to happen for you to think about yourself when you respond to that question the next time? That's your homework. But I want to leave you with a tool to help you do that. And that's my leadership agility map. Leading with my head. So I'm going to click through this, and I encourage you to take a picture And you can also contact me and if you'd like a copy of the slides. These are self-reflection questions for each segment, if you will. Yeah? So leading with my head, how do I learn? How do I prioritize? And if you notice, it's all inward looking. Because before you lead others, you've got to lead yourself. Leading with my heart and leading with my hands. You can take a picture now. That is true. And as we begin to wrap up, I do want to, again, if you wouldn't mind responding to this. So what is the one action that you're committing to strengthening your own leadership agility? And this will open up as a statement, and it's got a character limit, 250 characters. So if you wouldn't mind responding to that, and then we'll take a look at what everyone said. Oh, that's lovely. Listening, leading with heart, continuous introspection, being present, reframing how I think about, approach, and plan for change. This is great. Attending this conference, I like that one. Humility, self-reflection, understanding all viewpoints. I can download this later, and then if anybody's interested, I can share that back with you. Thank you, and thank you all for sharing your thoughts. So, I had a couple of, before I really let you go, oh, it just skipped over. This is one of my favorite quotes about change by Rumi. Yesterday I was clever. I wanted to change the world. And today I'm wise. I want to change myself. Clever or wise, you decide. And in a nutshell, lead from where you are. Lead self before you lead others. And lead with your head, heart, and hands. And to me, that's how we can co-create a future of work that works for everyone, including the planet. Thank you very much.